people's name. Okay, we are now recording. Sam, go for your life.
Great. Okay, thank you. So I'm Sam. I actually work for Pathfinders as research and campaigns officer, and I used to run PA training sessions last year actually with Charlie. So yeah, thank you for inviting me along. So yeah, going to talk about adverts today. So luckily for me, fortunately, I luckily haven't had to put together an advert for a long time, but soon I will need to be as one of my long-standing PAs is leaving. So this has kind of come up at quite a good time. Um, so even though I haven't had to put together an advert in my previous role, I worked as a direct payments advisor. And so I supported a lot of people with putting together PA adverts. Some were successful, some were not. It all very much depends on the location. So from the adverts I have seen and worked on, and I would say the following bits are essential. Obviously you want to put the hours because people want to know how much they're working. Also, whether it is weekend or weekdays, as that can determine if people can work that or not, because some people may have childcare at weekends or may find it easier to work weekdays. And another thing I would put in as well is to talk about flexibility, just to sort of try and make it as flexible for them as possible. Obviously, you're the employer, so you want to ensure there is a bit of structure, but I would try and be as flexible as you can with sort of going around dates. Pay rate. This is usually depending on your funding body, unfortunately. Everywhere is different. We're actually doing a survey at the moment, and one of the findings is that the pay rates are all over the place. Some people are paying minimum wage, some are paying 20. So it's a bit of a mixture, and it very much depends on which funding body you are with and how lenient they are. I would always put sort of a summary of main duties. So sort of cleaning, cooking, things like that. I wouldn't go overboard. I wouldn't put too much stuff about the main duties. You can go into more detail in the interview, as I think that's what I see the interviews for. As sort of this advert is kind of an introduction to the role, and the interview is it's more, you can go into more detail. Skill and experience required. This obviously depends on your needs. Some people may need sort of someone with experience. For me, it's very much down to how I feel as an individual. So I don't really personally experience. It's not super important to me. More important is if I get on with the person. That for me, it's more important than experience. So because some of my PAs, they had no previous experience at all before working with me, but that meant that I was able to teach them my own way. So sort of teach them my methods and sort of go at my own pace. In terms of mentioning training, if you do sort of have training in place and it's provided, I would definitely mention this. Again, it's up to you what you put on the advert, but I would only put it in if there is enough space. I'm not really a fan of adverts that have far too much information on them. I think that can sort of overwhelm people. And also, I feel that the interview is a perfectly good stage to mention this. So if you do have space on your advert to put what certain training will be required, then do that. But if you feel that your advert's already bunched up already, then I would save that for the interview. I would say if you require hoisting, manual handling training is super important. And yeah, if they haven't got that, then they should get that as soon as possible. So yeah, you should mention this at the interview stage, and especially if they haven't done a care role before. A lot of my PAs, they haven't done care before, so a lot of them didn't have manual handling experience. So I sort of had to sort of mention at the beginning because that's super important for both your and their safety. In terms of how much personal information you put on it, obviously you want to sort of make yourself stand out, but I would try to limit how much you put on the advert. Obviously, don't put your address or any personal details. Obviously, you need some form of contact so they can get hold of you, so an email or a phone number. But I would sort of leave it at that. You can mention more in the interview. I would say age is putting your age is okay, especially if you want to find someone of a similar age and you can put your age on the advert. You obviously just can't like pick people based on their age. But if you say your age that I'm so and so this year's old, you can put that. Something I would really recommend is to try and make the job sound as fun as possible. Mention your hobbies and interests. Really make your advert bespoke to you, as that can really draw people in. For me, I really enjoy going to festivals and gigs, and so I try and make it as clear as possible that I require someone who would enjoy going to these. However, you must also mention the other more, like I call them the mundane tasks, so cleaning, personal care, laundry, so as to sort of ensure your advert is realistic. Because obviously no one's going to be going to festivals every weekend. You're going to have the odd weekend where you're maybe not feeling as well. More so in winter, you might not be doing as much. So you must mention the other tasks as well, as they are equally important. Um, in terms of where to advertise, I haven't done this in a very long time, but I'm quite fortunate in that I was able to find a lot of my PAs through word of mouth and through friends, both friends of mine and friends of my PAs, who also knew other PAs. So that was quite lucky that having that connection. Yeah, so yeah, in terms of word of mouth, we did a social care survey recently for the organization, and about 67% stated they used word of mouth. So that's the most common method that people use, which I just thought was quite interesting. And then you've got people who use Indeed and PA pool. So yeah, I found that the fact that people use word of mouth is really interesting. Um, Community notice boards are also an option, but those are generally less favoured, as they just generally don't get as much footfall as maybe word of mouth does. I would always chat with other PA employers about how they recruit, as they may have suggestions you may not have initially considered. Some methods may work in better in certain areas than others. Um, so my overall top tips would be to make your advert eye-catching. Don't make it too overwhelming though, but ensure it does clearly communicate your needs, make it bespoke to you. Give them a picture, not literally, but of who you are. Well, you can if you want, but it's up to you, and what it is like to work for you. Make your advert really stand out from the rest. I would always offer a trial shift before confirming their position. As I would say, interviews on their own are really hard to gauge someone's ability or character. So I would definitely, before you sort of offer them the job, offer a trial shift, just to see that you both get on well. Because obviously some people can be really good at interviews, but may not perform as well in the actual workplace, and it may be the other way around. People may not perform well at interviews, but they're really good in the workplace. But yeah, a trial shift gives you the opportunity to see them as if they're already working with you. So that's why I would always recommend that. Um, Following this, I would always sort of do a quick follow up, as this shows you are sort of an attentive employer, and that's what sort of a PA would really like. And it makes you look good as an employer if you're sort of following up quite attentively. As I said at the beginning, in my job as a direct payment advisor, advertising was very hit and miss. Some adverts got loads of interest, some didn't. Unfortunately, it is more common to find employers struggling to recruit for a range of reasons, not just because of the job, but it could be because of the location. And if you are in this position, it is important that you stay hopeful and don't give up. because eventually you may get someone who is interested. Um, Hopefully you will. But yeah, if you are in this position, yeah, stay hopeful and don't give up. In terms of where you hold the interviews themselves, I would always try to have them in person as you can get a better sense of getting to know them. And going to a neutral venue, I wouldn't say um, have an interview in your own house, for example. You don't really want that. Have a neutral venue with other people around, cafe, a community centre, or even a park if the weather is decent. So more for summer. I definitely avoid having it at your home. One of the reasons is simply imagine being annoyed at not getting a job and knowing where the person who didn't give you the job lives. So that's sort of why I would say don't have it at your own address. So those are sort of my sort of tips in a little nutshell about sort of my experiences. Hopefully, yeah, because I'll need to use these ones when I'm employing next. So I hope these were some useful tips. I've seen there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. I'm just going to turn the recording off now.